The gymnasium doors swung open, and Sarah Mitchell froze. Across the room, her ex-husband, Derek, was laughing, his arm wrapped around a blonde woman half his age. But that wasn't what made Sarah's blood turn to ice. It was what he was saying. My first wife? Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Had to call the cops on her twice. She even tried to hurt our daughter. The lies hit Sarah like physical blows. Then a deep growl echoed behind her, and she turned to see a German shepherd in a tactical vest, his handler stepping out of the shadows in navy digital camouflage. If you've ever been silenced and then found your voice, hit subscribe and stay until the end. Drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. Sarah Mitchell stood outside Jefferson High School for exactly 7 minutes before she found the courage to touch the door handle. 20 years. 2 decades since she'd walked these halls as a hopeful 17-year-old who believed love conquered everything. Back then, she'd been Sarah Donovan, valedictorian, volleyball captain, and hopelessly in love with the most charming boy in their graduating class, Derek Lawson. The name still made her stomach clench. Her phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out with trembling fingers.
Mommy, did you go inside yet?
Emma's voice, small and worried, cut through the noise of her racing thoughts.
Not yet, baby. Just taking a breath. Grandma says you're the bravest person she knows. I think so too.
Sarah closed her eyes. 9 years old, and already her daughter understood things no child should have to understand.
I love you, Emma. Love you more. And Mommy? Yes? Don't let him make you small. You're not small.
The line went dead, and Sarah stared at the phone. Her daughter's words echoed in her mind. Don't let him make you small. For 7 years, she had rebuilt her life piece by piece. She had gotten her nursing degree while working nights at a gas station. She had found an apartment, then a small house. She had created a safe world for Emma, a world without screaming, without broken glass, without the heavy silence that came after Derek's rage subsided. And now she was voluntarily walking back into his orbit.
This is insane,
she whispered to herself. But she had promised herself. 20 years. She would go to her 20th reunion, and she would prove to herself that Derek Lawson no longer controlled her. She pulled open the door. The gymnasium hit her with a wave of sensory overload. Streamlined banners in Jefferson blue and gold. A DJ playing songs from their senior year. Tables laden with finger foods and a punch bowl that probably contained something stronger than fruit juice. And voices. So many voices. Sarah moved along the wall, trying to find a familiar face that didn't make her want to run. She spotted Jenny Morrison near the photo display, and her heart lifted slightly. Jenny? The woman turned, and her face lit up with genuine warmth.
Sarah! Oh my God, you came!
They hugged, and Sarah felt some of the tension leave her shoulders.
I almost didn't, Sarah admitted. I know, I almost didn't either.
Jenny lowered her voice.
He's here, with his new wife, number 3, apparently.
Sarah's chest tightened.
I saw. She's 28, works at his real estate company.
Big surprise. Jenny rolled her eyes.
He's been holding court all night, telling everyone about his new development project, the Lawson Legacy Estates, because apparently his ego needed a housing development named after it.
Sarah tried to smile, but it felt wrong on her face.
How are you really doing?
Jenny asked, studying her carefully.
I'm fine. I have Emma. I have my job at the VA hospital. Life is good. Sarah, really, I'm okay.
Jenny didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. Let's get some punch, non-spiked. I saw Mike Reynolds pouring vodka into the other bowl. They walked toward the refreshment table, and Sarah allowed herself to breathe. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. Maybe she could spend the evening catching up with old friends.
maybe even laugh a little, and then go home to her daughter with proof that the past no longer owned her. Well, well, well. The voice sliced through Sarah's fragile calm like a knife through silk. She turned slowly. Derek Lawson stood 3 feet away, looking exactly like the nightmare she'd spent years trying to forget. Still handsome, still polished, still wearing that smile that used to make her believe everything would be okay. Sarah Donovan. Or wait, is it Mitchell now? I lose track. It's Mitchell, she said, and she was proud that her voice didn't shake. Right. Your mother's maiden name. How original. He took a sip of his drink, his eyes never leaving her face. You look tired. Jenny stepped forward. Derek, don't you have somewhere else to be? I'm just saying hello to my ex-wife. Is that a crime? He smiled wider. We were married for 5 years, after all. Had a daughter together. Though Sarah seems to have forgotten that part, since I haven't seen Emma in 3 years now? Sarah's hands curled into fists at her sides. The court decided you shouldn't see her. The court decided based on lies. His voice dropped, and suddenly the charming mask slipped just enough for Sarah to see what lurked beneath. We both know who the real liar is here, don't we, Sarah? Derek. A blonde woman appeared at his elbow, her diamonds catching the gymnasium lights. Who's this? Brittany. Meet Sarah, my first wife, the one I told you about. Something flickered in Brittany's eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or warning. Oh, Brittany said carefully. Hello. Sarah was just leaving, Derek said. She doesn't really fit in here anymore, isn't that right? Working as a nurse, living in that little house on Oak Street. He shook his head with mock sympathy. Some people just don't reach their potential. At least I can sleep at night, Sarah said quietly. Derek's expression hardened. Excuse me? Nothing. Forget it. No, please. He stepped closer, and Sarah instinctively stepped back. She hated herself for it. Tell me what you meant by that. Jenny grabbed Sarah's arm. We should go. She's not going anywhere. Derek's voice rose just slightly, enough to draw attention from nearby clusters of former classmates. Not until she explains what she meant by that comment. Derek, let it go, Brittany murmured. He shrugged off her hand. My ex-wife just implied something about my character in front of our classmates. I think I deserve an explanation. Sarah felt the old familiar feeling creeping over her. The urge to apologize, to smooth things over, to make herself smaller so his anger wouldn't grow. Don't let him make you small. I meant, she said slowly, that I sleep fine because I don't have anything to hide. Derek laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's rich. That's really rich coming from you. He turned to the growing crowd around them. Did you all know that Sarah here had a complete mental breakdown during our marriage? Called the police on me 3 times with false allegations. The DA threw out every single charge because there was no evidence, because she made it all up. That's not true, Sarah whispered. She tried to keep my daughter from me, my own daughter. Had to spend $200,000 in legal fees to fight for basic visitation rights. You hit me. The words came out before Sarah could stop them. You hit me for 5 years. Silence crashed over the gymnasium like a physical force. Derek's face went very still. Now that's a dangerous accusation, Sarah. It's not an accusation. It's the truth. You broke my arm. You put me in the hospital twice. You... Prove it, Derek cut her off. Where's your proof? Oh, right, there isn't any, because it never happened. He addressed the crowd again. This is what I dealt with for years, folks. Baseless accusations from an unstable woman. My lawyers can verify everything. I was never charged, never convicted. You know why? Because I never laid a hand on her. Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes. She would not cry. She would not give him that satisfaction. "Why don't you tell them about the restraining order?" she managed. "The one you violated by being here tonight. We're both named on the reunion invitation, Sarah. I could have you arrested for being within 500 feet of me." He smiled coldly. "But I'm not a vindictive person, unlike some people." "That's enough." A new voice cut through the tension. Sarah turned to see a man pushing through the crowd. Mike Reynolds. They'd had chemistry together senior year. Now he was apparently an attorney, based on the business card he was pulling from his pocket. "Derek, back off. You're creating a hostile environment." "This is a private conversation, Mike." "It stopped being private when you started making defamatory statements in front of 50 witnesses." Mike positioned himself between Derek and Sarah. "I think you should walk away." Derek's eyes narrowed. "Is that legal advice, counselor?" "It's common sense. Take it or leave it." For a moment, Sarah thought Derek might actually take a swing at Mike. She'd seen that look before, that coiled tension in his shoulders, that slight twitch in his jaw. Then Brittany tugged at his arm. "Baby, let's go get some air. Please." Derek held Mike's gaze for another second before forcing a laugh. Sure, let's go." He turned back to Sarah, leaning close enough that she could smell his cologne. The same cologne he'd worn their wedding night. "This isn't over," he breathed. "You don't get to walk into my reunion and spread lies about me." He walked away, Brittany hurrying beside him, her heels clicking against the gymnasium floor. Sarah realized she was shaking. "Are you okay?" Jenny asked urgently. "I need air. I'll come with you." "No." Sarah shook her head. "Please, I just need a minute alone." She pushed through the crowd, ignoring the whispers that followed her, and burst through the side door into the parking lot. The night air hit her like cold water. She braced her hands on her knees and tried to breathe. She had promised herself she would be strong. She had promised herself she would show Derek Lawson that she wasn't afraid of him anymore. She had failed. The tears came then, hot and angry and shameful. She pressed her hand against her mouth to muffle the sounds. "Ma'am?" Sarah's head snapped up. A man stood 10 feet away, silhouetted against the parking lot lights. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing some kind of military uniform. Even in the darkness, she could make out the digital camouflage pattern. At his side stood a German shepherd, alert and watchful, its tan and black coat gleaming under the lights. "I'm fine," Sarah said quickly, wiping her face. "Just needed some air." The man didn't move. "You're Sarah Mitchell." She froze. "How do you know my name?" "VA Hospital, 3rd floor. You were my nurse." Sarah squinted at him, trying to make out his features. "I'm sorry, I see a lot of patients. Marcus Stone. Commander Marcus Stone. You saved my life 2 years ago." The name hit her like a physical blow. Marcus Stone. The SEAL who'd been admitted after a catastrophic mission in Afghanistan. 3rd-degree burns, shrapnel wounds, and PTSD so severe he'd tried to end his own life twice before arriving at her ward. She'd spent 6 months fighting to bring him back from the edge. "Marcus," she breathed. "Oh my God." He stepped closer, and now she could see his face clearly. Older than she remembered, but stronger too. His brown hair was cropped short, and his jaw was set with a quiet determination she recognized from his recovery. "Ghost remembered you before I did," Marcus said, nodding toward the German shepherd. "Started pulling toward your scent the second we walked into the parking lot." Sarah looked at the dog. "Ghost?" "My K9 partner. Well, former partner. He was injured in the same operation that put me in your hospital. They wanted to put him down, but I couldn't let that happen. Not after everything we'd been through together." The dog stepped forward and pressed his nose against Sarah's hand. Despite everything, she felt herself smile. "Hey, boy," she murmured. scratching behind his ears. "You're beautiful. You know that?" Ghost's tail wagged slowly.
"He doesn't do that for most people," Marcus observed. "He remembers you, too." Sarah looked up at him. "What are you doing here? At Jefferson High?" "My sister's husband graduated here, class of 2004. She asked me to pick up a raffle prize she won because she's stuck at home with a sick kid." Marcus paused. "I was just leaving when I heard shouting from inside. Thought there might be trouble." "Just my ex-husband," Sarah said bitterly. "Apparently, I'm still capable of ruining his night by existing." Marcus's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "Ex-husband?" "Derek Lawson. We were married for 5 years. Sarah straightened up, embarrassed by her vulnerability. "I'm sorry, you don't need to hear about this. You should go get that raffle prize." "Sarah." Something in his voice made her stop. 2 years ago, when I was at my lowest point, you sat with me for 8 hours straight. You held my hand when I couldn't stop shaking. You told me that survival wasn't about being strong. It was about being honest about what happened to you. Sarah's throat tightened. You also told me that you understood trauma better than most nurses. I always wondered what you meant by that. Marcus, that man in there, Marcus continued quietly. The one who just made you run outside crying. He's the reason, isn't he? Sarah couldn't speak. The words lodged in her chest, heavy and immovable. You don't have to answer, Marcus said. But I want you to know something. Whatever he said to you in there, it's not true. Not a single word. Because the woman who pulled me out of the darkness, who refused to give up on me when everyone else had, that woman is one of the strongest people I've ever met. You don't know me, Sarah whispered. You only saw me at work. I know enough. Marcus's jaw tightened. I know what abuse looks like. I know what it does to a person. I've seen it in combat zones, in training camps, in the eyes of people who've been beaten down so many times they forgot they were ever whole. Ghost whined softly, pressing closer to Sarah's leg. And I know, Marcus said, that whatever happened between you and that man in there, it wasn't your fault. Sarah felt something crack inside her. Something she'd been holding together with duct tape and denial for years. He never left marks, she heard herself say. That was his specialty. He knew exactly how to hurt me without leaving evidence. And when I finally tried to leave, when I was pregnant with my daughter and scared out of my mind, he told everyone I was crazy. He had money, connections. His family practically owned this town. No one believed me. Marcus listened without interrupting. I took Emma and I ran. Changed my name, started over, built a whole new life. Sarah's voice cracked. And tonight, I thought I could face him. I thought I was finally strong enough. But one conversation, and I'm right back to being that scared woman who couldn't even defend herself. You defended yourself, Marcus said firmly. I heard you through the door. You told the truth about what he did. That takes courage. It takes stupidity. Now everyone thinks I'm the crazy ex-wife, just like he wanted. Not everyone. Sarah looked at him. I don't think that. And Ghost definitely doesn't think that. Marcus's mouth curved slightly. And he's an excellent judge of character. Trust me. Despite everything, Sarah laughed. It came out wet and shaky, but it was real. What kind of name is Ghost for a German Shepherd? His official name is Phantom Warrior K9 2247. Ghost seemed easier. Sarah wiped her eyes. You always did have terrible jokes. You remembered. Hard to forget. You told that same joke about the 3 SEALs walking into a bar every single day for a month. It's a good joke. It's a terrible joke. For a moment, they stood in comfortable silence. Ghost had settled onto his haunches, but his ears remained alert, swiveling toward the gymnasium door every few seconds. I should go back in, Sarah finally said. My friend Jenny is probably worried. You want company?
You don't have to do that. Marcus shrugged. I've got nowhere else to be. And honestly, my sister's raffle prize is a set of bath towels. I don't think she'll mind waiting another hour. Sarah hesitated. Every instinct told her to decline, to handle this alone, to stop being a burden. But there was something in Marcus's steady gaze that made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in years. Okay, she said quietly. But just so you know, my ex-husband is going to assume we're together. He's going to make comments. Good. Good? Men like him only respect two things: money and power. Marcus's expression hardened. I don't have money, but I've got something better. What's that? The ability to make his life very uncomfortable if he doesn't leave you alone. Ghost rose to his feet, and Sarah swore the dog was smiling. They walked back toward the gymnasium together, Ghost padding silently between them. Sarah's heart was still pounding, but now it felt different, less like fear and more like anticipation. The door swung open, and the noise of the reunion crashed over them once again. Sarah scanned the crowd and spotted Derek immediately. He was near the stage now, microphone in hand, apparently preparing to make some kind of speech. "Ladies and gentlemen," Derek's amplified voice rang out. "If I could have your attention for just a moment." The crowd settled into expectant silence. 20 years ago, we walked out of this gymnasium as kids with dreams. Some of us achieved those dreams. Others, his eyes found Sarah across the room. Well, let's just say life had different plans. Muffled laughter rippled through the crowd. But tonight isn't about dwelling on the past. It's about celebrating our futures. And I'm thrilled to announce that Lawson Development has just broken ground on the biggest residential project this town has ever seen. The Lawson Legacy Estates will bring 200 new homes to Jefferson County, creating jobs and opportunities for the next generation. Applause erupted. Sarah felt her stomach turn. Of course, none of this would be possible without the support of this community, which is why I'm also announcing a $50,000 donation to Jefferson High's Scholarship Fund. More applause, louder this time. Derek basked in the adulation, his smile stretching wider and wider. Then his gaze landed on Marcus and Ghost, and the smile flickered. "I see we have a guest," Derek said into the microphone. "A man in uniform. Let's give him a round of applause, shall we? Our brave military." The applause was confused now, uncertain. Marcus didn't react. "And look at that magnificent dog." Derek's voice dripped with false warmth. "Is that a service animal? I hope he's not going to cause any problems. We do have food here, after all." A few nervous laughs. Ghost remained perfectly still, his eyes fixed on Derek with unsettling intensity. "I'm sorry," Derek continued. "I don't believe we've met. Are you Sarah's new boyfriend? Because I have to warn you, friend, she comes with a lot of baggage." He laughed at his own joke. "Trust me, I'd know." The gymnasium had gone very quiet. Sarah felt her face burning with humiliation. Then Marcus spoke. "Commander Marcus Stone." His voice carried easily, even without a microphone. "United States Navy. And no, I'm not Sarah's boyfriend." Derek's eyebrow rose. "Then what are you?" "I'm the man who's about to ask you a question, Mr. Lawson." The crowd stirred uneasily. "By all means," Derek said, his smile turning brittle. "Ask away." "How much of the Lawson Legacy Estates project is built on land you acquired through eminent domain proceedings that displaced 17 elderly homeowners?" Silence. Derek's smile vanished completely. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really? Because the Jefferson County Register has quite a detailed article about it, published last month." Marcus's voice remained calm, almost conversational. 17 families. Some of them had lived on that land for 3 generations. But the county appraiser, who happens to be your cousin, valued their properties at 40% below market rate. Forced sales. No appeals. That's a matter of public record, Derek said stiffly. Everything was done legally. Legally, maybe.
Ethically? Marcus shook his head slowly. That's a different question. The murmuring in the crowd grew louder. Listen, soldier, Derek's voice hardened. I don't know who you think you are, but you're crashing a private event with unsubstantiated accusations. I could have you removed. You could try. Ghost shifted his weight, and suddenly the dog didn't look friendly anymore. I think, Derek said tightly, that you should leave. Now. I think, Marcus replied, that Sarah should decide whether she wants to stay or go. Not you. Not anymore. Derek's face flushed with barely contained rage. This is none of your business. You made it my business when you publicly humiliated her in front of 50 people. She's my ex-wife. I have every right. You have no rights over her. Marcus's voice dropped to something cold and precise. Not anymore. And if you continue to harass her, you'll find out exactly how seriously the military takes protection orders. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you of facts. There's a difference. For a long, terrible moment, the two men stared at each other. The gymnasium seemed to hold its breath. Then Brittany appeared at Derek's side, tugging frantically at his arm. Derek, please, let's just go. I'm not going anywhere. Derek, please. There was something desperate in Brittany's voice now. Please, can we just go home? Something flickered across Derek's face. Calculation, maybe. Or recognition that he was losing control of the narrative. Fine. He thrust the microphone at the nearest classmate. This isn't over, Sarah. Not by a long shot. He stalked toward the exit, Brittany hurrying behind him. The gymnasium door slammed shut, and suddenly everyone was talking at once. Sarah stood frozen, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. Jenny appeared at her elbow. Sarah, are you okay? I don't know, Sarah admitted. Who is that man? The one in the uniform? Sarah looked at Marcus, who was fielding questions from curious classmates, while Ghost maintained his position at Sarah's side, like a furry sentinel. He was a patient of mine, she said slowly. 2 years ago. I helped him through a difficult time. Well, Jenny said, it looks like he's returning the favor. Marcus extricated himself from the crowd and made his way back to Sarah. Are you all right? I don't know, she said again. Derek doesn't let things go. He's going to retaliate. He always does. Let him try. You don't understand. He has money, power, connections. He destroyed my reputation once. He can do it again. Sarah. Marcus's hand came up to rest on her shoulder, warm and steady. 2 years ago, you told me something I've never forgotten. You said that monsters only have power over us when we face them alone. Sarah's breath caught. You're not alone anymore, Marcus said quietly. Whatever happens next, whatever he tries to do, you won't be facing it alone. Ghost pressed against Sarah's leg, and she could have sworn the dog was nodding in agreement. Why are you doing this? She whispered. You barely know me. I know enough. Marcus's expression softened. I know that when I was drowning, you threw me a lifeline. I know that you have a daughter who needs her mother to be safe. And I know that men like Derek Lawson count on their victims being too scared to fight back. I am scared. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. But courage isn't the absence of fear, Sarah. It's deciding that something else matters more. Sarah looked up at him, this man who had emerged from her past like an unexpected guardian, and felt something shift deep inside her. She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know if Derek would make good on his threats. She didn't know if her fragile new life would survive whatever storm was coming. But for the first time in 7 years, she didn't feel alone.
"Okay," she said softly. "Okay."
Marcus nodded. "Let's get you home to your daughter." They walked out of the gymnasium together, Ghost padding silently between them, leaving behind 20 years of memories and walking toward an uncertain future. As the cool night air wrapped around her, Sarah Mitchell made a decision. She was done running. Whatever came next, she would face it head-on. And this time, she wouldn't face it alone. The drive home took 17 minutes, but Sarah couldn't remember a single turn. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly, her knuckles had gone white. In her rear-view mirror, she could see the headlights of Marcus's truck following at a steady distance, Ghost's silhouette visible in the passenger seat. Her phone rang through the car's speakers. Mom calling.
"Sarah? Honey, are you on your way?"
5 minutes out, Mom."
"Good. Emma tried to stay up, but she fell asleep on the couch about an hour ago."
Her mother paused.
"How was it?"
Sarah laughed, and it came out ragged. "I'll tell you when I get there." She pulled into her driveway and sat for a moment, watching Marcus park his truck along the curb. He didn't get out immediately, just sat there with Ghost, giving her space. She appreciated that more than she could say. Her mother met her at the door, concern etched into every line of her face. Patricia Donovan was 63 years old and had survived a husband's death, a daughter's abusive marriage, and the terror of watching Sarah rebuild her life from nothing.
"What happened?" Patricia demanded. "You look like you've seen a ghost."
Derek was there. Patricia's expression hardened.
"I knew this was a bad idea. I told you." "Mom!"
Sarah held up her hand.
"There's someone I need you to meet."
Marcus had gotten out of his truck, Ghost at his heel. They walked up the driveway with a quiet precision of men who had learned to move through dangerous spaces. Patricia's eyes widened.
"Who is this?"
"Marcus Stone. He was a patient of mine at the VA. He helped me tonight." "Helped you how?" Marcus extended his hand. "Mrs. Donovan, your daughter saved my life 2 years ago. I was happy to return the favor." Patricia studied him for a long moment, then shook his hand firmly. "Military?" "Navy SEAL. Retired as of 6 months ago." "And the dog?" "Ghost. Combat K9. Also retired." Patricia looked at Sarah, then back at Marcus. "You'd better come inside. I have a feeling this is going to be a long conversation." They settled in the living room, Ghost curling up at Marcus's feet with a contented sigh. On the couch, Emma slept peacefully, her small chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Sarah couldn't stop looking at her daughter. "Tell me everything," Patricia said. So Sarah did. The confrontation with Derek, the public humiliation, Marcus's intervention, Derek's threats. When she finished, Patricia was silent for a long moment. "He's not going to let this go," she finally said. "I know. He's going to come after you, after Emma. He's going to use every weapon in his arsenal." "I know, Mom." "Then what are you going to do about it?" Sarah opened her mouth, but no words came out. Marcus leaned forward. "Mrs. Donovan, I did some research on Derek Lawson before tonight. The land deals I mentioned at the reunion? That's just the tip of the iceberg." Patricia's eyes sharpened. "What do you mean?" "I have a friend who works for the FBI. He owes me a favor from our time in Afghanistan. I made some calls this afternoon." Sarah stared at him. "You knew Derek would be at the reunion?" "I knew you would be, and I knew he might cause problems." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I wasn't going to let you walk into that situation without backup." "You've been watching me?" "Checking on you. There's a difference." He met her gaze steadily. "After everything you did for me, I wanted to make sure you were okay. When I saw the reunion announcement in your hospital locker room,
I put two and two together. That was 3 weeks ago. I've been doing research ever since. Patricia leaned forward. What kind of research? Marcus pulled out his phone and scrolled through several documents. Derek Lawson has been investigated 3 times by the State Real Estate Commission. All 3 investigations were dropped due to insufficient evidence. But here's the interesting part.
The lead investigator on 2 of those cases? He now works for Lawson Development. Sarah felt her stomach drop. He bought them off. It gets worse. Derek's construction company has won 14 city contracts in the past 5 years. 12 of those contracts were awarded after significant donations to the mayor's re-election campaign.
That's corruption, Patricia said flatly.
That's business in Jefferson County. Marcus's voice was grim. But the FBI has been building a case, quietly. They didn't have enough to move forward until recently. What changed? Marcus looked at Sarah. They found a witness, someone who worked inside Lawson Development and saw the payoffs firsthand. Who? They won't tell me. Witness protection. But apparently this person has documents, recordings, everything. The FBI is planning to move within the next few months.
Sarah's mind raced. If Derek finds out someone is talking,
he'll try to silence them. Or run, Marcus nodded. Which is why we need to be careful. Whatever we do next, we can't tip him off. Emma stirred on the couch, mumbling something in her sleep. Sarah's heart clenched.
I can't put her at risk. I won't.
You won't have to. Marcus stood and walked to the window, checking the street with practiced eyes. I've already spoken to my friend at the FBI. They're aware of tonight's confrontation. They're going to increase surveillance on Derek.
And what about us? Patricia demanded.
What about my granddaughter? Marcus turned back to face them. I have resources, friends who owe me favors. For the next few weeks, you'll have protection around the clock. You won't see them, but they'll be there. I can't afford. It's not about money, Marcus cut her off gently. It's about making sure Derek Lawson never hurts anyone again. Sarah studied his face, looking for any sign of deception. All she saw was determination.
Why?
She asked quietly. Why are you doing all of this? Marcus was silent for a moment. Then he walked over and crouched down in front of her, putting them at eye level. When I was in that hospital bed, ready to give up, you told me something. You said that the world needs people who refuse to stay broken. That every person who survives and thrives is a victory against the darkness. Sarah remembered. She'd said those words at 3 a.m, holding Marcus's hand while he sobbed after a particularly vicious nightmare. You saved my life with those words, Marcus continued. And then you spent 6 months proving you meant them. You didn't just treat my wounds, Sarah. You gave me a reason to keep fighting. Ghost patted over and pressed his head against Sarah's knee. This dog was supposed to be put down, Marcus said. He was too traumatized, too aggressive, but you advocated for him. You found the animal therapy program that gave him a second chance. Ghost is alive because of you. Sarah looked down at the German Shepherd's warm brown eyes. So, when I say I'm going to protect you, Marcus said firmly, I need you to understand that it's not charity. It's not obligation. It's gratitude. And it's the right thing to do. The room fell silent, except for Emma's soft breathing and the tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Then Patricia stood up. I'll make coffee. Something tells me we're going to be up for a while. She disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Sarah and Marcus alone with the sleeping child and the watchful dog. I'm scared, Sarah admitted. I know. Not just for me, for Emma, for my mom. Derek has destroyed people before. Businesses, careers, lives. He doesn't stop until he's won. Then this time he's going to lose. You can't promise that. No, Marcus agreed, but I can promise that he won't fight alone. And neither will you.
Ghost lifted his head suddenly, ears pricking forward. A low growl rumbled in his chest. Marcus was on his feet instantly, moving to the window with silent precision. "What is it?" Sarah whispered. "Car, sitting at the end of the street with its lights off." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Derek?" "Maybe." Marcus pulled out his phone. "Stay here. Keep Emma and your mother inside."
"Marcus, wait!" But he was already out the door, Ghost at his side, moving through the darkness like shadows given form. Sarah gathered Emma into her arms, the little girl mumbling sleepily against her shoulder.
"Mommy?" "It's okay, baby. Go back to sleep." "Who's here?" "Just a friend. Everything's fine."
But everything wasn't fine. Sarah could feel it in her bones, that old familiar terror creeping back like an unwelcome visitor. Through the window, she watched Marcus approach the parked car. Ghost moved beside him, every muscle coiled with tension. The car's engine roared to life. Tires squealed against pavement. The vehicle shot forward, straight toward Marcus. Sarah screamed. But Marcus was already moving, diving to the side with Ghost, hitting the grass as the car roared past. It swerved at the last second, missing them by inches, then disappeared around the corner. Marcus was up in seconds, phone already at his ear. "Did you get the plate?" Sarah heard him say. "Good. Run it. Now!" He walked back toward the house, Ghost limping slightly beside him. "Is he okay?" Sarah demanded as soon as Marcus came to the door. Ghost caught his paw on the curb. "He'll be fine." Marcus knelt down to examine the dog's leg, running practice fingers along the joint. "Nothing broken, just bruised."
"Was it Derek?"
The car was registered to Lawson Development. Patricia appeared in the doorway, her face ashen.
"He tried to run you over."
"He tried to scare us." Marcus's voice was hard. "It was a warning shot."
"A warning shot? He could have killed you."
"If he wanted me dead, I'd be dead. This was a message." Marcus looked at Sarah. "He wants you to know he can get to you anytime he wants." Emma was fully awake now, clinging to Sarah's neck with frightened eyes.
"Mommy, what's happening?"
"Nothing, sweetheart. Just some car trouble outside."
"Who's that man? And why is there a doggy?"
Sarah looked at Marcus, who had crouched down to Emma's level with a gentle smile that transformed his entire face. "Hi there. I'm Marcus, and this is Ghost. We're friends of your mom's." Emma studied him with the serious intensity only children possess. "Are you a soldier?" "I was. Now I just help people." "Like a superhero?" "More like a friend with good training." Ghost limped over and sat directly in front of Emma, tail wagging despite his injury. "He likes you," Marcus said. Emma reached out hesitantly and touched Ghost's head. The dog's eyes closed in contentment.
"He's soft," Emma whispered. "Can he stay?"
Sarah's throat tightened.
"Baby, Ghost belongs to Marcus. But maybe they could visit sometimes? Please, Mommy?"
Marcus caught Sarah's eye, and something unspoken passed between them. "We'd like that," he said quietly. "We'd like that very much." The next 3 hours passed in a blur of phone calls, security arrangements, and whispered conversations. Patricia finally convinced Emma to go back to sleep in her own bed, with Ghost curled up on the floor beside her like a furry guardian angel. Sarah stood in the doorway of Emma's room, watching her daughter sleep with a dog she'd just met. "She feels safe with him," Marcus said from behind her. "She's never felt safe with any man. Not since she was old enough to understand what her father was." Ghost has that effect on people. He can sense fear, pain, trauma, and somehow he knows exactly how to make it better. Sarah turned to face him. "What happens now?" "Now, we wait. My FBI contact is expediting the investigation. With tonight's incident, they have grounds for additional surveillance. Derek just made a very stupid mistake."
He doesn't make mistakes. Everything he does is calculated.
Then he underestimated us.
That's even better.
Sarah shook her head. You don't know him like I do. He'll have an alibi for tonight. Probably a dozen witnesses saying he was somewhere else entirely. Probably. But the car is registered to his company. The driver will be identified. And when they are, they'll have to choose between loyalty to Derek and federal prison. You think they'll flip? People always flip when they're facing serious time. That's human nature. Sarah walked to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water, her hands still trembling slightly. I spent 7 years building this life, she said quietly. 7 years of working double shifts, saving every penny, making a home for my daughter. And in one night, it all feels like it could crumble. It won't crumble. Marcus followed her into the kitchen. Because you're not the same person you were 7 years ago. You're stronger, smarter, and this time, you're not alone.
What if that's not enough?
It will be.
How can you be so sure?
Marcus was quiet for a moment. When I was in Afghanistan, my unit was ambushed. 12 men. We were pinned down for 16 hours. No backup, no extraction, no hope. By the time they got us out, only 4 of us were still breathing. Sarah set down her glass. For 2 years after that, I believed I should have died with them. I believed surviving was a betrayal. And then I met a nurse who told me that survival wasn't weakness. It was responsibility. That every day I lived was a chance to honor the men who didn't. Sarah remembered that conversation. She'd had no idea if her words were helping or hurting. She'd just spoken from the heart. You gave me purpose when I had none, Marcus said. You showed me that broken things can become whole again. Not the same as before, but whole in new ways, stronger in the broken places. He reached out and took her hand. His palm was rough with calluses, but his touch was gentle. Whatever comes next, he said, we face it together. That's not a promise I make lightly. And it's not a promise I break. Sarah looked into his eyes and saw something she hadn't seen in a very long time. Hope. Okay, she whispered. Together. Ghost appeared in the kitchen doorway, his ears perked forward, tail wagging slowly. Marcus smiled. I think he approves. Despite everything, Sarah laughed. It was small and watery, but it was real. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. She stared at it, her heart suddenly pounding. Don't answer it, Marcus said. What if it's the FBI? They'd call me first. We established protocols. The phone stopped buzzing, then started again, and again, and again. On the 5th call, a text message appeared. This isn't over, Sarah. You think your soldier boy can protect you? He can't. No one can. I built this town. I own this town. And I own you. You'll never escape me. Never. Sarah's hands shook as she showed Marcus the message. His face went hard as stone. He's escalating. What do we do? Marcus took out his own phone and began typing rapidly. We document everything. Forward that message to my FBI contact. And we don't respond. Derek wants a reaction. We don't give him one. And then what? Marcus looked up from his phone, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. And then we take him down. Legally, publicly, and permanently. Derek Lawson has spent his whole life believing he's untouchable. We're going to prove him wrong. From Emma's room, Ghost began to howl, a long, mournful sound that raised the hair on Sarah's arms. She'd never heard him make that sound before. What does that mean? She asked. Marcus's expression darkened. It means he senses danger, close danger. He moved toward the front door, pulling Sarah behind him. Through the window, she could see headlights, multiple vehicles pulling up in front of her house. Marcus,
Stay here. He was out the door before she could stop him, Ghost materializing at his side despite his injured paw. Sarah watched from the window, her heart in her throat. 3 cars, black SUVs with tinted windows. The doors opened, and Derek Lawson stepped out into the street, flanked by 4 men in dark suits. He looked directly at Sarah's window and smiled. Then he raised his phone and began to dial. Her phone rang in her hand. She answered before she could stop herself. "Hello, Sarah." Derek's voice was silk over steel. "I believe we have some unfinished business to discuss." Sarah's grip tightened on the phone until her knuckles went white. "What do you want, Derek?" "What I've always wanted. What's mine." Through the window, she watched Marcus position himself between the SUVs and her front door. Ghost stood rigid at his side, teeth bared in the silent snarl. "I'm not yours anymore. I never was." "That's where you're wrong." Derek's voice dropped to that familiar, dangerous register. "You were mine the moment you said I do, and you'll be mine until I decide otherwise." "The police are on their way." "Are they?" "Because I just had a very pleasant conversation with Chief Morrison. Apparently there's no law against parking on a public street." Derek laughed softly. "Did you forget, Sarah? I own this town. The police, the judges, the city council. All of them." Marcus had his phone out, speaking rapidly to someone. "Your soldier friend can't help you," Derek continued. "Neither can the FBI." "Oh yes, I know about that. Did you think I don't have people everywhere? My attorney received a very interesting call this evening about increased surveillance. I have to thank you, really. Now I know exactly who's watching." Sarah's blood ran cold. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Ask your friend Marcus about Agent Rodriguez, the one who's been building a case against me for 18 months. Ask him how Agent Rodriguez's daughter is doing at Stanford. Ask him if he'd like her to finish her degree." "You're threatening a federal agent's family?" "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm simply pointing out that everyone has vulnerabilities. Everyone has something to lose." Derek paused. "Speaking of which, how's Emma sleeping tonight?" Sarah's vision went red. "Don't you dare! I'm her father, Sarah. I have rights. And after tonight's little display at the reunion, I think it's time I exercise them. My lawyers will have emergency custody papers filed by morning." "You lost custody. The courts can be persuaded. Judges can be replaced. And witnesses," Derek's smile was audible, "witnesses can change their minds." The front door opened, and Marcus stepped inside, his face tight with controlled fury. "Hang up," he mouthed. "I have to go, Derek." "Of course you do, but Sarah, this is your last warning. Drop whatever you're planning with the FBI. Convince your soldier to leave town, and maybe, just maybe, I'll let you keep pretending you have a life worth living." The line went dead. Sarah's hands were shaking so badly she dropped the phone. Marcus caught it before it hit the floor. "What did he say?" "He knows. About the FBI, about Agent Rodriguez, about everything." Sarah's voice cracked. "He's going to file for emergency custody of Emma." Patricia appeared in the hallway, her face ashen. "He can't do that. The court terminated his parental rights." "He says he can get it reversed. He says he owns the judges." Marcus was already dialing. "Rodriguez, it's Stone. We have a situation. Lawson knows about the investigation. He's making threats against your family." Sarah couldn't hear the response, but she watched Marcus's expression grow darker with every passing second. "Understood. We'll be ready." He hung up and looked at Sarah. "Pack a bag. You, Emma, and your mother. We're leaving in 10 minutes. "Leaving? Where?" "Safe house. FBI has one about 40 miles outside the city. Rodriguez is sending an escort." "I can't just leave. I have work tomorrow. Emma has school. Sarah. Marcus gripped her shoulders firmly.
Derek Lawson just threatened a federal agent's daughter. That means he's desperate. Desperate men do desperate things. We need to get you somewhere he can't reach. Ghost whined urgently, padding toward Emma's room.
I'll get Emma, Patricia said, already moving. Sarah, pack what you need. Nothing else matters right now. The next 8 minutes were a blur of frantic activity. Sarah threw clothes into a duffel bag without looking at them.
Patricia gathered Emma, still drowsy with sleep, wrapped in a blanket, with Ghost refusing to leave her side.
Mommy, where are we going?
On a little trip, baby. Like an adventure.
Is the doggy coming?
Marcus appeared in the doorway. Ghost goes where I go, and I'm not leaving you. Emma smiled sleepily and buried her face in Ghost's fur. They slipped out the back door just as the wail of approaching sirens filled the air. Not police sirens, Sarah realized. Something else. Fire department, Marcus said grimly. Someone called in a false alarm. Distraction tactic. They piled into Marcus's truck, Ghost in the back seat with Emma, while Patricia squeezed in beside them. Sarah took the passenger seat, her heart hammering against her ribs. Marcus pulled away from the curb without turning on his headlights. "Where are Derek's men?" Sarah asked. "Still in front of the house. They'll figure out we're gone in about 3 minutes." Marcus checked his rearview mirror. "Our window is tight." He navigated through back streets Sarah had never noticed, turning seemingly at random until they emerged onto a county road heading east. "How do you know this route?" "I mapped it this afternoon. Always have an exit strategy." Sarah stared at him. "You really did plan for this." "I hoped I wouldn't need to." His jaw tightened. "I was wrong." They drove in tense silence for 20 minutes. Emma had fallen back asleep, Ghost's steady presence keeping her calm. Patricia sat rigid, her hand gripping the door handle. Then Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his expression shifted. "What?" Sarah demanded. "Text from Rodriguez. They picked up Derek's men for questioning. Illegal weapons in 2 of the vehicles." "That's good, right?" "It buys us time. But Derek himself is still free. He wasn't in any of the cars when the police arrived." "He was there. I saw him." "He must have slipped away before they moved in." Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "He's smart. I'll give him that." The safe house turned out to be a modest farmhouse surrounded by empty fields. 2 unmarked cars were already parked outside when they arrived. A woman stepped out to meet them. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. "Commander Stone, I'm Agent Catherine Walsh. Rodriguez is handling things in the city. I'll be your primary contact here." Marcus shook her hand. "Status?" "Lawson's lawyers are already making noise. They're claiming harassment, violation of civil rights, the whole playbook." Walsh's lips pressed into a thin line. "But they made a mistake tonight. One of the men we picked up is talking." Sarah felt a spark of hope. "What did he say?" Walsh hesitated, glancing at Emma, sleeping in Patricia's arms. "Let's get everyone settled inside first." The farmhouse was surprisingly comfortable. 2 bedrooms, a functional kitchen, and a living room with well-worn furniture. Patricia took Emma to the smaller bedroom, Ghost following without being told. Once they were alone, Walsh turned to Sarah and Marcus. "The man who's talking is named Vincent Russo. He's been Derek's fixer for the past 6 years. He handled bribes, intimidation, and according to him, at least 3 instances of witness tampering." Sarah sank into a chair. 3? "Including yours. Russo claims he was sent to intimidate the witnesses who were going to testify about Derek's abuse during your custody hearing." The room seemed to tilt. That's why they recanted. "Mrs. Patterson from next door. She saw Derek hit me through the window.
She was going to testify. And then suddenly she said she'd been mistaken about what she saw.
Russo visited her the night before the hearing. He didn't make explicit threats, but he made sure she understood what would happen if she testified. Sarah thought about Mrs. Patterson, a widow in her 70s, who had been nothing but kind to her. The guilt of what Derek had done to that poor woman burned in her chest. Why is Russo talking now? Because Derek's getting sloppy. He stopped paying Russo 6 months ago, promised him a payout after the Lawson Legacy Estates project was completed, but Russo got tired of waiting. Walsh's smile was cold. Never underestimate the power of a disgruntled employee. Marcus leaned forward. What does Russo know about the land deals? Everything. He has documents, recordings, emails, enough to bring down Derek's entire operation. But? Walsh sighed. But Russo's credibility is compromised. He's a known criminal with a history of violence. Any halfway decent defense attorney will tear him apart on the stand. We need corroboration. Independent witnesses or evidence that supports his claims. What about Brittany? Sarah asked suddenly. Both Marcus and Walsh looked at her. Derek's current wife. Tonight at the reunion, when everything was happening, she looked scared. Not of Marcus, of Derek. Walsh pulled out a notebook. You think she's being abused? I think she knows something. The way she kept trying to pull Derek away, the way she flinched when he raised his voice. Sarah's voice hardened. I know that body language. I lived it for 5 years. Marcus exchanged a glance with Walsh. Can you bring her in for questioning? Not without cause. If we approach her directly and she tells Derek, we lose whatever advantage we have. Then I'll talk to her. Sarah stood up. Woman to woman, off the record. Absolutely not, Marcus said immediately. Derek is looking for you. If you surface anywhere near his orbit, he won't know. Brittany goes to yoga every Tuesday and Thursday morning. I saw it on her Instagram. Sarah's chin lifted. I can intercept her, talk to her privately. If she's going through what I went through, she'll want someone to listen. It's too dangerous. It's our best shot. Sarah looked at Walsh. You said you need corroboration. If Brittany has evidence, if she's willing to testify about what Derek has done to her, that changes everything. Walsh was quiet for a long moment. She's right. A current spouse willing to testify would be extremely compelling, especially if we can document a pattern of abuse. And if Derek finds out? Marcus demanded. If he figures out what Sarah is doing and decides to silence both of them? Then you'll be there to make sure that doesn't happen. Sarah met his eyes steadily. You said we were in this together. You said I wasn't alone anymore. Did you mean it? Marcus's jaw worked silently. I can protect her, he finally said to Walsh. But I want backup, plainclothes agents covering every exit. Done. And if anything feels wrong, we abort immediately. Agreed. Marcus looked at Sarah, his expression unreadable. You're sure about this? I'm sure, Sarah's voice didn't waver. For 7 years, I've been running from Derek Lawson, hiding, surviving. But I'm done surviving. It's time to fight back. Ghost padded into the room and sat directly at Sarah's feet, his warm brown eyes fixed on her face. See, she said softly, even Ghost thinks it's a good idea. Despite everything, Marcus almost smiled. Ghost thinks everything is a good idea if it involves protecting the people he loves. Then we're on the same page. The plan came together over the next 48 hours. Sarah would approach Brittany at her yoga studio, present herself as a concerned fellow woman who had noticed something wrong at the reunion. If Brittany was receptive, Sarah would try to build trust, eventually offering her a way out. The morning of the operation, Sarah stood in front of the farmhouse bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. She had spent so long being afraid, so long making herself small, quiet, invisible. No more. Sarah? Patricia's voice came through the door.
Emma's asking for you. She found her daughter in the kitchen, eating cereal, with Ghost lying protectively at her feet. Mommy, when can we go home? Soon, baby, I promise. I miss my room and my friends. Emma looked up with those clear, trusting eyes. But I like it here, too. Ghost sleeps by my bed every night. Sarah knelt down and pulled her daughter into a tight hug. I love you so much. You know that, right? I know. Emma hugged her back. I love you too, Mommy. More than anything. Marcus appeared in the doorway. It's time. Sarah kissed Emma's forehead one last time, then stood. I'll be back before dinner, she told Patricia. Take care of her. Take care of yourself.
The drive to the yoga studio took 45 minutes. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, while Marcus navigated, Walsh's voice occasionally crackling through an earpiece he wore. Team Alpha in position. Team Bravo covering the back. We have eyes on the target. Brittany Lawson just entered the building. Marcus pulled into a parking spot 3 spaces from Brittany's BMW. You have 20 minutes before the class ends, he said. I'll be right here the whole time. I know. If anything feels wrong, I'll signal. 3 taps on my thigh, just like we practiced. Marcus caught her hand as she reached for the door handle. Sarah. She turned. Be careful. Always. She walked into the yoga studio with her heart pounding and her head held high. The lobby was peaceful, all soft music and essential oil diffusers. A young woman at the front desk looked up with a practiced smile. Can I help you? I'm here to meet a friend. She's in the 9 a.m. class. Of course. The class should be ending in about 5 minutes. You're welcome to wait. Sarah chose a seat with a clear view of the studio doors. Through the glass, she could see women in various yoga poses, their movements fluid and synchronized. Then she spotted Brittany. Even in workout clothes, Derek's wife looked immaculate. Blonde hair perfectly styled, designer yoga pants, diamond studs that probably cost more than Sarah's car. But there was something else, something Sarah recognized in the careful way Brittany held herself, the way her smile never quite reached her eyes. The class ended, and women began streaming out. Brittany was one of the last, moving slowly, as if reluctant to leave. Sarah stood and stepped into her path. Mrs. Lawson? Brittany's eyes widened with instant recognition. You're Sarah, Derek's ex-wife. Can we talk? Please, just 5 minutes. Fear flickered across Brittany's face. I don't think that's a good idea. I know what he does to you. Sarah kept her voice low. I know because he did the same thing to me. Brittany's careful mask cracked, just for a second. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. Sarah stepped closer. The way you flinch when he raises his voice. The way you jump to calm him down at the reunion. The way you're wearing long sleeves in summer. Brittany's hand moved instinctively to her forearm. You don't have to live like this, Sarah continued. There's a way out. I can help you find it. He'll kill me. The words came out in a terrified whisper. He told me exactly what would happen if I ever tried to leave. He told me the same thing, but I'm still here, and he's going to prison. Brittany's eyes searched Sarah's face. How can you be so sure? Because the FBI is building a case against him, a strong one. And with your help, we can make sure he never hurts anyone again. My help? Brittany laughed bitterly. What could I possibly have to offer? The truth, that's all. Just the truth. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Then Brittany's face crumpled. I have video, she whispered. On my phone. He doesn't know. I started recording 6 months ago, after he broke my wrist and told everyone I fell down the stairs. Sarah's heart raced. Will you share it with the FBI? If I do, I'm dead. He has people everywhere. So do we. There's protection available, a safe place where he can't reach you. You don't have to be afraid anymore. Brittany was crying now, silent tears streaming down her perfect face. I wanted to believe he would change. He promised he would change. But he never does he? Men like him never change. No, Sarah said gently. They don't. Brittany wiped her eyes with shaking hands. What do I need to do? Sarah took a deep breath. Come with me. Right now. There's someone I want you to meet. They walked out of the yoga studio together. Two women united by shared trauma and newfound hope. Marcus was already out of the truck, Ghost at his side. Brittany froze when she saw the German shepherd. It's okay, Sarah assured her. He's friendly. His name is Ghost. As if to prove the point, Ghost padded forward and pressed his nose gently against Brittany's hand. She let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He's beautiful. He's also an excellent judge of character. Marcus opened the rear door. Mrs. Lawson, my name is Marcus Stone. I'm going to take you somewhere safe. Are you ready? Brittany looked back at the yoga studio, then at her BMW, then at the two strangers offering her a lifeline. I'm ready. They climbed into the truck and Marcus pulled away, Walsh's voice crackling in his ear. Package secured. All teams fall back to secondary positions. Good work. Sarah sat in the back seat with Brittany, their hands clasped tightly together. Thank you, Brittany whispered. I thought I was going to die in that house. You're not going to die, Sarah squeezed her hand. You're going to live. We both are. Through the rear-view mirror, she caught Marcus's eye. He nodded once. They were one step closer to destroying Derek Lawson. And this time, he had no idea they were coming. The farmhouse felt different now, with Brittany inside. Sarah watched Derek's wife sit at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. Ghost lay at her feet, his presence a steady comfort that Brittany seemed to cling to. I met him at a charity gala, Brittany said quietly. 3 years ago. He was charming, attentive, everything I thought I wanted. My friends all said I was the luckiest woman alive. Sarah sat across from her. That's how it starts. It's always how it starts. The first time he hit me was on our honeymoon. Brittany's voice was flat, disconnected. We were in Bali. He didn't like the way the waiter looked at me. Said I was flirting. I wasn't. I was just being polite. You don't have to explain yourself to me. I know. Brittany finally looked up, her eyes red-rimmed and hollow. I need someone to understand. Everyone thinks I have this perfect life. The big house, the designer clothes, the handsome husband. They have no idea what happens behind closed doors. Agent Walsh entered the room with a laptop. Mrs. Lawson, I need to ask you some questions about the videos you mentioned. Are you ready? Brittany nodded slowly. I have them backed up to a cloud account Derek doesn't know about. I'll give you access. Before we proceed, I want to make sure you understand what happens next. Once we have this evidence, there's no going back. Derek will be arrested. There will be a trial. You'll like videos of Derek screaming, throwing things, striking her. Audio recordings of threats so vile that Sarah had to leave the room twice. Marcus found her on the farmhouse porch, staring at nothing. You okay? No, Sarah's voice cracked. I thought I had it bad. But what she's been through, it's worse. So much worse. It's not a competition. Marcus stood beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. Abuse is abuse. Your pain matters just as much as hers. I know. It's just hard to hear. It brings everything back. Ghost pushed through the screen door and pressed against Sarah's legs. He knows when you need him, Marcus said. He always knows. Sarah knelt down and buried her face in Ghost's fur. The dog stood perfectly still, letting her draw whatever comfort she needed. Thank you,
she whispered. Both of you. The screen door opened again, and Walsh stepped out. We've got enough. More than enough. Her expression was grim, but satisfied. I'm coordinating with Rodriguez now. We're moving on Derek tonight. Sarah's heart lurched. Tonight? We can't risk him finding out about Brittany. Every hour she's missing is another hour he has to destroy evidence or flee the country. What do you need us to do? Stay here. Stay safe. Let us handle the rest. Marcus shook his head. I'm going with you. Commander Stone, I know Derek's operation better than anyone except Russo. I've been studying him for weeks. You need me on this. Walsh hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Fine, but you follow our lead. No cowboy heroics. Understood. Sarah grabbed his arm. Marcus, wait! He turned to face her. Come back, she said simply. Please, come back to us. Marcus cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized she was crying. I'll always come back to you. That's a promise. He kissed her forehead gently, then walked to his truck with Ghost at his heels. Sarah watched until the taillights disappeared into the darkness. Patricia appeared beside her. He'll be okay. Men like that don't break easily. I know, Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. I just found him. I can't lose him now. You won't. Inside, Brittany had fallen asleep on the couch, exhaustion finally overwhelming her fear. Sarah covered her with a blanket and settled into a chair nearby, Ghost's absence making the room feel emptier than it should. Hours passed. Patricia made sandwiches that no one ate. Emma woke up once, confused and scared, but Sarah soothed her back to sleep with soft words and softer promises. At 2:47 a.m., Sarah's phone rang. She answered before the second ring. Marcus? It's done. His voice was tired but triumphant. We got him. Sarah's knees buckled. She grabbed the kitchen counter for support. Tell me everything. Derek was at his office, shredding documents. We caught him red-handed with files that directly link him to the bribery scheme. He tried to run. Ghost stopped him. Is everyone okay? Few bruises, nothing serious. Ghost got a little too enthusiastic. But Derek will survive to stand trial. Marcus paused. There's more. What? When we searched his office, we found something. A file. With your name on it. Sarah's blood ran cold. What kind of file? Surveillance photo. Records of your movements. Emma's school schedule. Your mother's medical appointments. He's been tracking you for years, Sarah, since the day you left. The phone trembled in Sarah's hand. He never stopped hunting me. No, but he'll never hunt you again. I made sure of that. Sarah closed her eyes, letting the reality wash over her. It was over. It was finally over. When can I see you? I'm on my way now. Should be there in about an hour. I'll be waiting. She hung up and turned to find Patricia standing in the doorway, hope and fear warring on her face. They got him, Sarah said. Derek's in custody. Patricia's face crumpled. She crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled Sarah into a crushing hug. My baby, she whispered. My brave, brave baby. They held each other for a long time. 7 years of fear and tension slowly releasing from their bodies. Mom? They turned to see Emma in the hallway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. What's happening? Why are you crying? Sarah knelt down and opened her arms. Emma ran into them without hesitation. Good things are happening, sweetheart. Really good things. Is the bad man gone? Sarah's throat tightened. Emma had never spoken about Derek directly, but somehow she knew. Children always knew more than adults gave them credit for. Yes, baby, the bad man is gone. He can't hurt us anymore.
Emma's small arms squeezed tighter.
Good. I never liked him.
Neither did I, sweetheart. Neither did I. An hour later, headlights appeared in the farmhouse driveway. Sarah was out the door before the truck fully stopped. Marcus emerged looking exhausted but whole. Ghost jumped down beside him, tail wagging despite a bandage wrapped around his front paw. Sarah threw herself into Marcus's arms without thinking. He caught her easily, holding her close while she cried into his shoulder.
I was so scared, she admitted.
I kept thinking about all the things that could go wrong. Nothing went wrong. Marcus stroked her hair gently. We got him. It's over.
Is it really? He has lawyers, money, connections?
He has nothing. Marcus pulled back to look at her face. The evidence is overwhelming. Russo's testimony, Brittany's videos, the documents from his office. His own lawyers are already distancing themselves. Nobody wants to go down with that ship. Ghost whined and pressed against Sarah's legs. She laughed wetly and knelt down to embrace the dog.
You hero. You big, beautiful hero.
Ghost's tail wagged harder, his tongue lapping at her face. He took down Derek himself, Marcus said with unmistakable pride. Knocked him flat in the parking garage and wouldn't let him up until I got there. My guardian angel with 4 legs. Emma appeared on the porch, her eyes widening when she saw Ghost.
Doggy, you came back.
Ghost bounded toward her, all traces of his earlier intensity vanishing into pure joy. Emma giggled as he licked her face, her laughter ringing through the quiet night.
Can he sleep in my room again? Please?
Sarah looked at Marcus. Is that okay? Ghost goes where he wants, and clearly he wants to be with Emma. They went inside together, the whole strange extended family that trauma had built. Patricia made coffee. Brittany woke up and listened with tears streaming down her face as Marcus recounted the arrest.
It's really over?
She kept asking.
He's really gone?
He's really gone. Brittany broke down completely then, sobbing with a release of emotion that seemed to shake her entire body. Sarah held her while she cried, understanding exactly what she was feeling. The relief of finally being free. The grief for years that could never be reclaimed. The terror that it might somehow all be taken away.
It gets better, Sarah promised. Not right away, not easily, but it does get better.
How do you know?
Because I'm living proof.
By dawn, Emma had fallen asleep again, with Ghost curled around her like a furry shield. Patricia dozed in an armchair. Brittany had retreated to the spare bedroom, emotionally exhausted, but safer than she'd been in years. Sarah and Marcus sat on the farmhouse porch, watching the sunrise over the empty fields.
What happens now? Sarah asked.
Now the legal system does its job. Derek will be arraigned, denied bail because he's a flight risk, and eventually tried for enough charges to keep him in prison for the rest of his life.
And us?
Marcus turned to look at her. What do you want to happen? Sarah considered the question carefully. 24 hours ago, her life had been about survival, getting through each day, protecting Emma from the shadow of her father. Now that shadow was gone.
I want to go home,
she said slowly.
I want to sleep in my own bed and wake up without being afraid. I want Emma to grow up knowing that the world isn't always cruel.
What else? Sarah met his eyes.
I want you to stay, if you want to.
I want to.
This isn't just gratitude talking, or trauma bonding, or whatever they call it.
I know.
Do you? Because I need you to understand.
I'm a single mother with a complicated past, and a daughter who has to come first. I can't promise anything easy. Marcus took her hand in his. I've jumped out of planes into hostile territory.
I've survived firefights, explosions, and an IED that nearly killed me. Easy was never what I was looking for."
"What are you looking for?"
"Something worth fighting for." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Someone worth coming home to." Sarah's heart swelled until it felt too big for her chest.
"We barely know each other."
"We know enough. The rest we can figure out together." Ghost appeared in the doorway, Emma's small figure visible behind him.
"Mommy? Commander Marcus? Can we have pancakes?"
Sarah laughed, the sound lighter than anything she'd felt in years. "Yes, baby, we can have pancakes." Emma bounced excitedly.
"Can Ghost have some too?"
"Ghost can have whatever he wants. He earned it." They went inside together, this unlikely family, forged in crisis. Marcus made pancakes while Emma supervised, Ghost sitting at attention by the stove in case any food happened to fall. Patricia woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of her granddaughter's laughter. "Something's different," she observed, looking between Sarah and Marcus with knowing eyes. "Something's better," Sarah replied. Brittany emerged eventually, her eyes swollen but calmer than before. She sat at the table and let Emma serve her pancakes with great ceremony.
"These are the best pancakes," Emma announced. "Commander Marcus makes them special."
"They're just regular pancakes," Marcus protested.
"No, they're special because you made them for us."
Sarah caught Marcus's eye and saw her own emotion reflected there. After breakfast, Agent Walsh called with an update. "Derek's arraignment is scheduled for this afternoon. The prosecutor is confident he'll be held without bail. We'd like you there, Sarah. You and Mrs. Lawson. Show the judge exactly who his victims are." Sarah's stomach tightened. "Is that safe?" "We'll have security, and honestly, it might help with closure. Seeing him in handcuffs, powerless for the first time in his life." Sarah looked at Brittany, who nodded firmly. "We'll be there." 3 hours later, Sarah walked into the Jefferson County Courthouse with her head held high. Derek was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed in front of him. The polished businessman was gone, replaced by something smaller, meaner, trapped. His eyes found Sarah in the gallery and blazed with fury. She didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She held his gaze steadily, letting him see the woman he'd tried so hard to destroy. Still standing, still fighting, still free. The arraignment proceeded quickly. Charges were read, bail was denied. Derek's court-appointed attorney made weak protests that the judge dismissed with obvious impatience. When it was over, Derek was led away in chains. He looked back once, his expression promising retribution. Sarah smiled, not a smile of cruelty or triumph, a smile of peace. The monster under her bed was finally caged. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed like hungry wolves. Sarah kept her head down and pushed through the crowd, with Marcus clearing the way ahead. "Mrs. Mitchell! Mrs. Mitchell! How does it feel to see your ex-husband in custody?" "Sarah, do you have any comment on the abuse allegations? Is it true you've been hiding from him for 7 years?" Marcus growled something that made the nearest reporter stumble backward. They reached the truck and climbed inside, Ghost waiting patiently in the back seat. "That was intense," Sarah breathed. "It'll calm down. Once the trial starts, you'll be old news." "I hope so." Marcus started the engine. "Ready to go home?" Sarah thought about her little house on Oak Street, the garden she'd planted, the room she'd decorated for Emma, the life she'd built from nothing. "Yeah," she said softly. "I'm ready to go home." But as they pulled away from the courthouse, Sarah's phone buzzed with an unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Hello?" "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Jennifer Chen with Channel 7 News. We're doing a special report on domestic violence survivors. Your story is incredibly inspiring,
and we'd love to feature you. Would you be willing to—"
"No comment."
Sarah hung up. The phone buzzed again immediately. Different number. And again. And again. Marcus glanced over. "You're going to want a new number."
"I'm going to want a lot of things."
Sarah turned off her phone.
"But right now, I just want to see my daughter."
Emma was waiting on the farmhouse porch when they arrived, Ghost having somehow communicated their approach before they turned into the driveway.
"Mommy, did you see him? Is he really going to jail?"
"He's really going to jail, baby." Emma hugged her tightly, then looked up with serious eyes.
"Good. Bad people should go to jail. That's what my teacher says."
"Your teacher is right." Patricia emerged with 2 suitcases already packed.
"I figured you'd want to head home as soon as possible."
"Mom, you're amazing." "I know. It's a burden, really." They loaded the truck and said goodbye to Agent Walsh, who promised to keep them updated on the trial proceedings. "You did something brave today," Walsh told Sarah. "Both of you. A lot of women in your situation never get the courage to fight back." "I had help." Sarah glanced at Marcus and Ghost. "The best kind of help." The drive home felt different from the drive out. 3 days ago, Sarah had fled in terror, not knowing if she'd ever see her house again. Now, she was returning victorious. Emma fell asleep within minutes, Ghost's head in her lap. Patricia sat quietly in the back, lost in her own thoughts. Marcus drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on Sarah's knee. "What are you thinking about?" he asked.
"Everything. Nothing. How strange life is."
"Strange how?"
"A week ago, I was just trying to get through each day, pay my bills,
"Raise my daughter, survive." Sarah shook her head slowly. "Now Derek's in jail, I have a retired Navy SEAL in my life, and my daughter thinks a combat dog is her new best friend. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" Sarah turned to look at him, this man who had walked out of her past and changed everything. "It's the best thing that's ever happened to me." Marcus squeezed her knee gently. "We're almost home." Sarah looked out the window at the familiar streets of her neighborhood. The corner store where she bought Emma's favorite candy. The park where they had picnics in summer. The library where Emma had learned to love reading. Home. It had never looked so beautiful. Marcus pulled into the driveway and cut the engine. "End of the line." Sarah didn't move immediately. She just sat there, letting the reality sink in. She was home. She was safe. She was free.
"Mommy?"
Emma's sleepy voice came from the back seat.
"Are we home?" "Yes, baby,"
Sarah's voice caught.
"We're finally home."
6 months later, Sarah stood in front of the Jefferson County Courthouse for the second time. But everything was different now. The woman who had once trembled at Derek's shadow now walked with her shoulders back and her chin high. The nurse who had spent years hiding was about to tell her story to the world. "You ready?" Marcus asked, Ghost sitting alert at his side.
"No."
Sarah took a deep breath. "But I'm doing it anyway." The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the gallery. Cameras lined the walls. The trial of Derek Lawson had become national news, a symbol of how wealthy abusers could evade justice for years until brave women finally spoke up. Sarah was the prosecution's final witness. She walked to the stand with her heart pounding and her hands steady. She had practiced this moment 100 times. She had imagined Derek's face, his lawyers, the jury watching her every move. Nothing could have prepared her for the reality. Derek sat at the defense table in his expensive suit, looking almost like the charming man she had married 12 years ago. But his eyes were different now. Harder. Desperate. Dangerous. "Please state your name for the record."
Sarah Marie Mitchell, formerly Sarah Lawson. The prosecutor approached slowly. Ms. Mitchell, can you tell the court about your marriage to the defendant? Sarah looked at the jury. 12 ordinary people who would decide Derek's fate.
I married Derek Lawson when I was 23 years old. I was young, naive, and desperately in love. He was everything I thought I wanted. Handsome, successful, charming. She paused. The first time he hit me was 3 months after our wedding. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. He apologized afterward, cried, promised it would never happen again. I believed him. Sarah's voice remained steady. It happened again 2 weeks later, and then again, and then I stopped counting. Can you describe the nature of the abuse? Physical, emotional, psychological. Derek was careful. He never left marks where people could see them. He made me believe I was crazy, that I deserved what was happening, that no one would ever believe me if I told. Did you ever seek help? Once. I went to the emergency room after he broke my arm. The doctor asked what happened. I told the truth. Sarah's jaw tightened. Derek arrived 20 minutes later with flowers and apologies. The doctor wrote down that I fell. Case closed. What happened next? I got pregnant. Emma, my daughter. Sarah's voice softened. She's the reason I finally found the courage to leave. When she was born, I looked at her perfect little face and I knew. I couldn't let her grow up watching her father hurt her mother. I couldn't let her think that was normal. How did you escape? I waited until Derek was on a business trip. I packed one bag, took my baby, and drove through the night to my mother's house. I changed my name, got a restraining order, and spent the next 7 years trying to rebuild my life. Derek's attorney stood up. Objection. This is all very dramatic, but where's the evidence? We've heard nothing but unsubstantiated claims. The prosecutor smiled. I'm glad you asked. For the next 2 hours, the prosecution presented evidence. Medical records Sarah hadn't known existed, obtained through subpoena. Testimony from nurses who had treated her injuries. Photos Derek himself had taken and stored on a cloud server, documenting his abuse like trophies. And finally, Brittany. Derek's third wife took the stand with tears streaming down her face. She showed the jury her videos, her recordings, her broken bones that had never healed right. He told me I was the love of his life, Brittany said. He told me his ex-wives were crazy, that they'd made everything up. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. By the time I realized the truth, I thought it was too late to escape. What changed? Brittany looked at Sarah. She did. Sarah showed me that escape was possible, that I didn't have to die in that house. The defense attorney tried everything. Character witnesses who praised Derek's generosity. Business associates who vouched for his professionalism. Even Derek himself, taking the stand to proclaim his innocence with practiced sincerity. These women are lying, he insisted. They're coordinating their stories to destroy me. I have enemies, competitors who want to see me fail. This is nothing but a conspiracy. Mr. Lawson, the prosecutor said calmly, can you explain why your cloud storage contains over 200 photographs of injuries on your wives' bodies? Derek's composure cracked. Those were taken for medical purposes, documentation of accidents. Accidents that occurred with remarkable frequency. Your first wife had 17 documented injuries in 5 years. Your second wife had 12. Your current wife has 23. The prosecutor held up a photograph. This image shows a boot print on a woman's back. Can you explain how that happens accidentally? I don't have to explain anything. I'm innocent. The evidence suggests otherwise. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Sarah spent those hours in a small room with Marcus, Ghost lying across both their feet. "Whatever happens," Marcus said quietly, "you did the right thing. You told the truth. That took more courage than anything I ever did in combat."
"I'm scared."
"I know."
"What if they believe him? What if he gets away with it again?"
Marcus took her hand. "Then we appeal. We fight. We don't stop until justice is done."
"And if it's never done?"
"Then you'll still be free. Emma will still be safe. Brittany will still be away from him." Marcus squeezed her fingers. "Winning isn't just about verdicts, Sarah. It's about surviving. And you've already won that battle." The door opened. Agent Walsh appeared, her expression carefully neutral. "The jury is back." Sarah's stomach dropped. They walked back to the courtroom in silence. Ghost pressed close to Sarah's leg, sensing her fear. The jury filed in, 12 faces, impossible to read. The foreman stood. "In the matter of the state versus Derek Alexander Lawson, on the charge of aggravated assault in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty." Sarah's knees went weak. "On the charge of witness tampering, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit bribery, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of domestic battery in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty." The charges kept coming. Guilty on all counts. Every single one. Derek's face went white, then red. He lunged to his feet, screaming, "This is a setup! You can't do this to me! I'll destroy all of you, every single one of you!" Bailiffs swarmed him, forcing him back into his chair. His attorney tried desperately to calm him down, but Derek was beyond reason now. "Sarah!" he screamed, his eyes finding her in the gallery. "This isn't over. You hear me? This will never be over." Sarah stood up slowly. She looked at the man who had terrorized her for years, the man who had broken her bones and shattered her spirit, the man who had stolen her peace and haunted her nightmares. And she smiled. Not a smile of cruelty, not a smile of revenge, a smile of freedom.
"Yes, it is,"
she said quietly.
"It's over."
Derek was dragged from the courtroom, still screaming threats that no one would ever have to fear again. The judge scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. Outside the courthouse, Sarah was mobbed by reporters, but this time she didn't run. "Miss Mitchell, how does it feel to finally get justice?" Sarah thought about the question. How did it feel?
"It feels like waking up from a nightmare," she said slowly. "It feels like taking a breath after holding it for years. It feels like finally being able to tell my daughter that monsters can be stopped."
"What message do you have for other abuse survivors?" Sarah looked directly into the camera. "You are not alone. You are not crazy. What happened to you is real, and it is not your fault. And no matter how powerful your abuser seems, no matter how hopeless your situation feels, there is always a way out. There are people who will believe you, who will fight for you, who will stand beside you when you're too tired to stand alone." She glanced at Marcus, who stood just behind her with Ghost at his side. "Find those people. Let them help you, and never, ever stop fighting for the life you deserve." The questions continued, but Sarah had said everything she needed to say. She walked away from the courthouse, with Marcus on one side and Patricia on the other. Ghost trotted ahead, clearing a path through the crowd. Emma was waiting in the car with Brittany, both of them glued to the live news coverage on a tablet. "Mommy!" Emma threw open the door and launched herself into Sarah's arms. "You were on TV! Everyone saw you!" "I know, baby. You look so brave, like a superhero." Sarah held her daughter tightly. "I didn't feel like a superhero." "That's what makes it brave," Emma said with the wisdom of a child. "Being scared
and doing it anyway. Marcus opened the driver's door. "Ready to go home?" Sarah looked at her mother, her daughter, her unlikely friend Brittany, and the man who had changed everything. "Yeah," she said. "Let's go home." The sentencing hearing came 6 weeks later. Derek Lawson was sentenced to 47 years in federal prison. His assets were seized. His company was dissolved. His name, once synonymous with power and success, became a cautionary tale. Sarah didn't attend the sentencing. She didn't need to. She was too busy living. The VA hospital promoted her to head nurse of the PTSD treatment unit. She started a support group for abuse survivors that grew from 3 members to 30 in just 2 months. She spoke at conferences, gave interviews, and testified before a state Senate committee about domestic violence prevention. Brittany moved to California and started over. They talked on the phone every week. 2 women bound by shared trauma and shared triumph. Patricia finally took the vacation she'd been postponing for years, sending postcards from beaches and mountains and places she'd only dreamed about. Emma started 5th grade, with Ghost as her official emotional support animal. The principal had been skeptical at first, but one look at the bond between the child and the dog had silenced all objections. And Marcus stayed. He took a job training service dogs for veterans. He coached Emma's soccer team on weekends. He fixed the leak in Sarah's roof and built a fence for Ghost to run in, and held Sarah through the nightmares that still sometimes came. He never asked for anything, never demanded anything. He was simply there, steady and patient and real. One evening, 3 months after the sentencing, they sat on Sarah's porch, watching Emma play with Ghost in the fading light. "I have something for you," Marcus said. Sarah turned to look at him. "What?" He pulled out a small velvet box. Sarah's breath caught. "Marcus." "Before you say anything, let me explain." He opened the box to reveal a simple silver band with a small diamond. "I know it's fast. I know we've only been together for 9 months. I know you have every reason to be cautious about relationships after everything you've been through. Marcus, but I also know that I love you. I love Emma. I love this life we're building together." His voice was steady, but his hands trembled slightly. "I'm not asking you to marry me right now. I'm asking you to think about it. To consider spending the rest of your life with a broken-down Navy SEAL and his equally broken-down dog." Ghost barked once, as if offended. "Sorry, buddy." Slightly broken-down dog. Sarah stared at the ring, her heart pounding. 10 years ago, she had said yes to a man who promised her the world and gave her only pain. 2 years ago, she had been alone and afraid, certain she would never trust anyone again. 6 months ago, she had been running for her life, convinced that Derek Lawson would win, like he always did. Now she was sitting on her own porch, being proposed to by a man who had shown her nothing but kindness, patience, and love. "Yes," she whispered. Marcus blinked. "What?" "Yes." Louder now, surer. "I don't need to think about it. I don't need more time. The answer is yes." "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Marcus slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "Mommy!" Emma came running across the yard, Ghost bounding beside her. "Did Commander Marcus give you a ring? Are you getting married?" "Yes, baby. We're getting married." Emma's face lit up like the sun. "Does that mean Ghost will be my brother?" Marcus laughed, the sound rich and warm and full of joy. "Something like that." "Best day ever." Emma threw her arms around both of them, Ghost barking excitedly and trying to join the hug. Sarah held her daughter and her future husband and thought about everything that had led to this moment. The pain, the fear, the years of hiding and running and surviving. but also the courage, the hope, the stubborn refusal to give up. She had been broken, but she had not been destroyed. She had been lost, but she had found her way home. And now, surrounded by the people and the dog who loved her, she finally understood something she had spent her whole life trying to learn. The monsters under the bed were real. They always had been. But so were the guardians. So were the heroes. So were the ordinary people who refused to look away when someone needed help. Marcus was her guardian. Ghost was her protector.
Emma was her reason to keep fighting, and she was not the victim anymore. She was the survivor. She was the warrior. She was finally, completely, unshakably free. That night, after Emma had gone to bed with Ghost curled at her feet, Sarah stood at her window and looked out at the quiet street. The same street she had fled down 7 years ago, with a baby in her arms and terror in her heart. The same street where Derek's men had tried to run Marcus down. The same street that had seen her darkest moments and her brightest triumphs. Marcus came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. Nothing. How different life is now." "Good different?" Sarah turned in his arms and looked up at his face. "The best different." She kissed him then, soft and slow and full of promise. Outside, the moon rose over Jefferson County, casting silver light on a world that had changed forever. Derek Lawson would spend the rest of his life in a cell. Sarah Mitchell would spend the rest of hers surrounded by love. And Ghost, the German shepherd who had survived combat and trauma and loss, would spend his golden years being spoiled by a little girl who believed he could do no wrong. Some stories end with the villain in chains. Some stories end with the hero riding off into the sunset. This story ended with something better. A family, a home, a future worth fighting for. And the unshakable truth that no matter how dark the night gets, dawn always comes for those brave enough to wait for it. Sarah Mitchell had waited long enough. Her dawn had finally arrived.